They're already paying the largest amount of taxes in the US, and they are having a lot of family values. They have the highest educational, attainments. They have the highest tax compliance rates. They have the highest law compliance rates. So, in so many ways, they are the model citizens or the ideal citizens of the future for the country of America. So, instead of encouraging them, you are trying to attack them and sort of tell them to go back. So, I think it will be a very important warning bell for the current administration for the November 2026 elections.
Well, I'm sad to say this, but I think his victory last night in the New York mayoral race is going to intensify racial attacks from the Trump administration. I think what's going to happen now is, and it's not good, is I think Trump's going to respond to this by doubling down on his racism.
A historic day for Zohran Mamdani, for the Indian American community. What does all of this mean? Let's dissect this with our guests. Joining me on India Connect tonight is Ambassador Pradeep Kapur. He's a former Indian diplomat who's also served as secretary in the government of India. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Also with us on the show is Brad Bannon. He's a political commentator. He joins us live from the American capital as well. Ambassador Pradeep Kapur, let me begin with you. What a historic moment really for Zohran Mamdani. As we said, becoming the first New York mayor of Indian origin, the first Muslim mayor, and the youngest in over a century. And a lot of us were really moved when we saw his Indian family joining him on stage, acclaimed filmmaker Meera Nair's son. He closed his fiery speech with the famous Bollywood song Dhoom Machale, which has set the internet on fire. And this is a man who is not afraid to wear his religious identity or his Indian roots on his sleeve. According to you, Ambassador, what does this historic day mean? Not just for Zohran Mamdani, but for the Indian American community?
Well, it's a very important paradigm shift in politics here, in the sense that what we had been seeing of late was a lot of vitriolic against the Bharatiyas here, let me put it that way, the Hindu community, the American Indian community. And this had risen to, unfortunately, very, very high levels of attacks. I was very shocked as a person who's worked in diplomacy for so many decades to see a video released by the Department of Labor, which talked about how they were trying to reclaim the American dream and take it back from H1B who had stolen it from them, etc. So for a government of US, for the US administration authority to put out such a video was a very, very big surprise and a shock. That sort of legitimizes attacks on H1B. And then we saw what happened with Vivek Ramaswamy putting out that tweet regarding Halloween with his children, and then the reaction to that. So I think they had gone overboard. The Republicans forgot also that important aspect of their victory in the last elections were the Bharatiya community in the 7 swing states also, where they had come out in large numbers to support them because of the agreement between the Democratic Party vice presidential nominee with the Muslims at that time for equal power sharing. Now Zohran Mamdani, you have mentioned about him very well. You outlined his background. He's Let's see how he works out for New York, because there are going to be a lot of clashes with the Trump administration with Washington D.C. How much of support he will get in terms of funding, federal funding for the city of New York? How many people will really move out of New York after having threatened to do so, because large number of millionaires and billionaires had said that they would quit New York. How will the Indian community react to his election? Because while he has, been very fond of Bollywood and his mother is a Hindu American, but his statements on the government of India or on the country of India or on the Prime Minister of India in the past have been rather negative and vitriolic. As long as he keeps his focus off India onto New York, I think it'll be a good thing because his statements on Palestine and Gaza are also very well known. So he's a mixed bag. Everybody will have to watch with caution because the Indians and the Bharati community in New York have a lot of sort of influence there. They are very well to do. The IIT, the Pan IIT, of which I'm a alumni member, Pan IIT community, they have a lot of access, a lot of influence, a lot of contributions in terms of funding in the elections. So I've known a lot of people who live in New York, and we have that very massive parade, on Independence Day, etc. So now we will have to see going ahead what, and as long as he does not, and like today he quoted Jawaharlal Nehru, which was a very good thing
Yes,
in his
exactly.
inaugural address. So as long as he continues on that trend, because he's always talking about Bollywood, he's taking lines from Bollywood, he's entertaining people with that. He's a young person, 34 years. So let us see how he shapes up. He has a lot of fine tuning to do in terms of his rough edges. He has to behave like a mayor now of one of the most important cities of one of the financial capitals of the world. And instead of going the Arvind Kejriwal way of giving freebies to everybody and making a disaster of the financial situation in New York, if he takes on a more responsible position in terms of governing it with a balanced way, with balanced finances, with not really scaring half the community of the city of New York, or little less than half the community, then he could make a good leader. He could make, even for the future, if he tones down his rhetoric on Palestine and Gaza, I think it will help him in his career. Back to you, Neha.
Okay. To be fair, he has made an outreach to the Jewish community as well, and there are many in the community who have, in fact, congratulated him on his win. And yes, the one moment that really did stand out in his Fari victory speech, as you mentioned there, was him quoting Jawaharlal Nehru and that famous Tryst with Destiny speech made by India's first Prime Minister during India's independence. Let me now bring in Brad Bannon at this point. Brad Bannon, a terrible night for Donald Trump, it would seem, who had threatened the voters of New York, saying, "You have no choice but to vote for my candidate, Andrew Cuomo. If you don't, I'm not going to send any federal funds to New York City." How do you think Donald Trump is doing tonight? Certainly, it's been a truly historic day for Zohran Mamdani, a man who's faced some very vicious, racist, bigoted, and Islamophobic attacks from Trump's MAGA base in the run up to this election, not to mention the references to 9/11.
Yeah, it was a terrible repudiation for Donald Trump. I should say something. One other thing that the mayor elect said in the victory speech last night, he said that New York City has always been a melting pot for immigrants. He's proud of that tradition, and he's going to make New York City welcome for immigrants again. And that's exactly diametrically opposed to what Donald Trump wants for America. America is becoming, whether Donald Trump likes it or not, America is becoming a more diverse nation. Uh, and Donald Trump is trying to take the United States and turn it back to an all-white enclave, and it's just not working. It can't work. And I think Mandami's election last night signals that America's open for immigrants. It's become more of an immigrant nation, regardless of what Donald Trump wants. You went through a list of Indian politicians who were successful last night. Well, there's one Indian American, Congressman Ro Khanna, who is
Yes.
going to run for president in 2028. And it's a sign that America is becoming a more diverse nation, while Donald Trump tries to pull America back to the last a century when it was basically an all-white enclave, and it's just not going to work. And this was a repudiation of Trump, his racist policies, and his failed economic policies.
Okay, you make some very interesting points that Zohran Mamdani's win and the win for the other Indian Americans is a repudiation of Trump's exclusionist politics. The fact that, as you say, he's trying to turn America into an all white enclave. That is not working with the people of the United States, certainly not
No, it
anymore.
is.
It isn't. Let me bring in Ambassador Kapur. Ambassador Kapur, would you agree, as we talk about and celebrate Zohran Mamdani's historic win, we must also remember Ghazala Hashmi and Aftab Purewal, three very successful members of the Indian American community who've made their mark in American politics at a time when it is frankly very difficult to be an immigrant in the United States of America. This is Trump's America. As I said at the start of the show, the Indian American community itself has been facing sustained, vicious and vitriolic attacks from the MAGA support base. Do you agree with Brad Bannon, who says this is the voter of America pushing back against that brand of politics, of hate, and telling Donald Trump that, we are the United States of America, this is the land of immigrants. And, that also came up prominently in Mamdani's speech, where he said, New York is a city of immigrants and will always remain one. And today, the mayor is an immigrant.
Thank you, Nehaji. It's a very interesting, analysis which will have to be made in the sense that are these the green sprouts of a much larger reaction to the current administration and their policies on immigrants, and particularly their attacks on H-1B of late? Because one thing which the administration and the people of America have to understand is that the H1Bs of today are the citizens of tomorrow, and they are the ones who are the Americans of tomorrow, who will be contributing to this country in even a greater way. They're already paying the largest amount of taxes in the US, and they are having a lot of family values. They have the highest educational attainments. They have the highest tax compliance rates. They have the highest law compliance rates. So in so many ways they are the model citizens or the ideal citizens of the future for the country of America. So instead of encouraging them, you are trying to attack them and sort of tell them to go back. So I think it will be a very important warning bell for the current administration for the November 2026 elections as to what is the path that they are going down towards. And another thing, Ghazala Hashmi has won the election as Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, of the Commonwealth of Virginia, after defeating two other Democratic candidates. She had the support of a large number of Indians because she has been quite neutral in her statements and outlook towards US India relations. She has not ventured down that path in a very significant way, like Mamdani has. So she has a lot more support from the Hindu American community also, and she has won because partly because of that also, because there are very prominent number of Indian Americans. And even in Maryland, by the way, just for your background information, Nehaji, the lieutenant governor is a Indian American called Aruna Miller, and she has been around since the last elections. And so the wave is continuing, it is increasing, and the impact, because if you are amongst the highest earning ethnic group, you are contributing to the country, you are contributing to funding of these elections, so you are playing a very positive role towards the country. If you are doing anything negative, if you look at the jails of America, there's hardly any Hindu American in the jails in America compared to large numbers of other communities. You can count, maybe if there are any, you can count them on your fingertips in the whole of the United States of America with 330 odd million people. So, if that is the sort of community that you are trying to discourage, it is not a good portent. So, I think Ghazal Hashmi winning, coming from a family of educators, coming from Hyderabad, her father being a very renowned educator, she herself having contributed very positively to the state of Virginia in the education sphere, and now coming into politics in a significant way. I think it's a very good portent, and also our other Indian Americans who will, of course, keep on playing a larger role, because the community itself, when they interact with these Hindus, they see them as very good contributors to the community, to the society, to the country, in every positive way. So their reactions at a personal level are very, very positive. But for the system to sort of try to, taint or paint a negative picture, I think was a very dangerous trend. I was absolutely shocked, as I told you earlier, when the Department of Labor put out a video talking about H-1Bs in a very, very negative light. I think that video needs to be taken down immediately if the Trump administration has to get the support of the Hindu Americans in the next round of elections also. If they don't do that, and the Rust Belt, the MAGA belt, the Bible belt, they sort of go down the path of vitriolic and continuous attacks on the Hindu Americans, and if there is hate crime or gun violence, I think it will turn away a large number of the Hindu American community from the Republicans, which had happened for the first time in the last elections when they voted Republican. Otherwise, a large majority of Hindu Americans in America have voted Democrat, but because of the wokeness
Well,
of
to
the
be honest,
Democratic
I
Party.
think many, sir, have had buyer's remorse, frankly, after voting for Donald Trump in last year's presidential election. They really got their fingers burnt very badly, given how his administration has treated, the Indian American community and India-US ties, which many believe are at their lowest ebb in the last 3 decades. Let's not even talk about the 50% tariffs imposed on India by Donald Trump. But you're quite right, sir. The Indian American community is perhaps the best assimilated migrant community in the United States that's actually been contributing to the American economy and way of life. And despite that, the kind of bigotry and hate that they've had to face under the Trump administration has been really painful to watch. Will that change now or only worsen? Who can say? But let me bring in Brad Bannon at this point. Brad Bannon, Vivek Ramamurthy, in fact,
Ramaswamy.
has Ramaswamy, I beg your pardon, has an important message for the Republican Party on a day when they have lost a series of elections. He says, end identity politics. And this is a man who has been at the receiving end of many hateful comments. Do you believe the Republican Party is listening? Are they going to pay attention, or are they going to, you think, double down on the kind of politics of hate that they have been engaging in? And also, what do you think is in store for New York? Are we likely to see a huge amount of confrontation now between Zohran Mamdani and the Trump administration, or do you think the two can find a way to work together?
I'm sad to say this, but I think his victory last night in the New York mayoral race is going to intensify racial attacks from the Trump administration. I think what's going to happen now is, and it's not good, is I think Trump's going to respond to this by doubling down on his racism. I think he's going to focus on Mondami, try to make him the face of the Democratic Party in America, and continue his anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim assaults. I think knowing Donald Trump, this is only going to make things worse. And I think one Republican member of Congress, Randy Fine from Texas, has already called for Mondami's deportation.
Yes.
the United States with no basis whatever. And honestly, I think that Trump is going to intensify his attacks on Mamdani. He is going to try to cut off his funding for New York City. I think he's going to make Mamdani a target and try to make him the face of the Democratic Party. And it's not going to work. One of the things that's going on here in the United States and was very apparent last night in the voting, not only in New York City, but in Virginia, New Jersey, is that young people came out in droves to support Mamdani and other Democratic candidates. Young Americans who are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the electorate, and it showed last night, resent racial politics. They easily accept immigrants. Now, Trump's base of older Americans are hostile to immigrants, but the reality is young Americans are becoming a bigger and bigger part of the voting pool, which is going to make Trump's intensified racist attacks backfire even more than they have now. So I think it's going to get very ugly now because Donald Trump is an ugly man. He is a racist. He uses racism to disparage his opponents. But I think whether Donald Trump likes it or not, this is becoming a more diverse nation racially, and Donald Trump can't stop it. And the growing presence of young Americans in the electorate, and who are very uh, respectful of racial differences, are going to make Trump's life more and more difficult as he becomes more and more racist, which I fear he'll do.
Okay, you're saying Donald Trump is going to make things uglier. Remember, he's not just threatened to
Yes.
cut off federal funding to New York, he's even threatened to send National Guard troops into New York, something that he has done with many blue cities already in the United States. But of course, Donald Trump would do well to listen to what the voters of New York have had to say in this election. I believe New York mayoral election saw the highest voter turnout in decades.
It
That
did, yes.
certainly, that certainly should be a strong message to
It is.
Donald Trump
And
and his
the
MAGA
other
base.
thing I think is going to happen
Yes.
is now I think Donald Trump will send federal troops into New York City to
Okay.
round up uh, aliens, immigrants. And I think it's going to get very ugly. But that's the sad reality of Donald Trump's politics. It's going to be very ugly. Uh, and I fear, but in the end, Americans won't tolerate Trump. And I think that's what happened last night across the nation is Americans said, no more, we've had enough, stop. But I don't think Donald Trump will because he doesn't listen to people.
He doesn't listen to anybody, so it's hard to make
That's
Donald
true,
Trump
yes.
stop.
But
Absolutely.
Nehaji,
So,
One point which I'd like to make is that
yes.
if I am a student of American history and I've seen the history for the last so many decades or the last couple of centuries, for me as a student of American history, it's a very sad moment in the history of the country to have the leadership of both the sides, both the parties, of such average quality. Let me put it that way: average
Okay.
sort of leaders. Because on the one hand, you have Democrats who have gone totally woke, who subscribe to the woke philosophy, who have a lot of tolerance for jihadi Islam, who have a lot of tolerance for the leftist Marxist liberal philosophy, and on the other hand, you have the rightist. So to have a good leader for America is the need of the hour. And I'm sure this country has a very great capacity for renewal and revival and renovation and sort of re-emergence. So I'm
Yes.
sure that'll happen
In
very
fact,
soon
in fact,
because
frankly, many are calling Zohran Mamdani's win a Barack Obama moment in American politics. But let me ask you this question, Ambassador Kapoor. Do you agree with Brad, who says he fears that things are only going to get uglier, that Trump will take the path of confrontation with New York now that Mamdani has won, whether it involves cutting off federal funding or even sending National Guard troops into the city? And also, do you think part of the problem also lies with the fact that the Democratic Party itself seems to be divided at the moment? So many senior leaders of the party did not even endorse Zohran Mamdani. In fact, when Hakeem Jeffries was specifically asked, is Zohran Mamdani the future of the Democratic Party? His answer was no.
Yes, so I think it's going to be a difficult, sort of way ahead for the Democratic Party also, because they are also very badly divided internally. They are not able to provide an alternative. This election was not for Democrats as such win. It was basically a vote against the current administration in Washington, D.C. So, since you are left with no alternative, you vote for the lesser evil. But it's not that they are a very good party or they are doing very good work for the future of the country. They are not even appreciating or understanding the threat perceptions that they face from the various important aspects like China, like the jihadi Islam, like the woke people. So they are not able to cope with that either. And on the other hand, you have the rightist bigotry. So till you have leaders who are interested in a good future for US, in a good future for US contribution to the world, in a good future for US India relations, because that is got the possibility of becoming the basic, most important and the pivotal relationship for the 21st century. So if that happens, I think then the future course corrections will start. But for the moment, we have to swerve from one sort of devil and the deep sea. Let me put it that way.
Okay, the devil in the deep sea. Last question to you, Brad Bannon. Ambassador Kapur seems to think that this was largely an anti-Trump vote, though we have to take into account the fact that Mamdani had really electrified the voters of New York, who came out, as we said, to vote in very, very large numbers. That certainly seems to suggest a huge amount of support and enthusiasm for his candidature. But do you believe that this was a referendum on Donald Trump's, shall I say, disastrous 10 months in the Oval Office? And if that is indeed the case, what can we expect as we count down to the midterms of 2026?
Well, I think it was largely a referendum to Donald Trump. I think it was also a referendum on Trump's failed economic policies. He promised to bring prices down in the United States on the first day of his second term. And he's been in office now for the second time, 9 months, and prices are getting higher. To answer your next question, but I think there's also a real element to it. I think how this fits together is Americans wanted Donald Trump to fix the economy, but he's been so preoccupied with the politics of race that he's ignored his economic responsibilities. And I think this is a bad sign for Republicans in the midterm elections next year, because the polls show, and the exit polls last night showed Trump was very unpopular. In New York City last night, the network exit polls showed that Donald Trump's approval rating was only 29%, which means only 3 out of 10 New Yorkers like Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump always says we're going to make America great again. I think what he really means when he say that is make America white again. And Americans don't want racial politics. They want Donald Trump to fix the economy. Instead, all they get is race bashing from the White House. And I think that's a big problem for the president.
You're right. He says make America great again. What he probably means is make America white again. You believe people are pushing back. You also believe that his unpopularity is largely on account of the fact that he is neglecting the economy. The irony is Donald Trump seems to think he's doing a fantastic job, with the economy by tariffing the entire world. As he keeps bragging, he's bringing trillions of dollars into the American coffers, of course not realizing that it is the cost of living crisis at home that is worsening thanks to his policies, including the tariffs that he's imposing on country after country. Well, what does this big election mean for America? Many believe it is an inflection point. We'll leave it at that. Ambassador Pradeep Kapur and Brad Bannon, a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining me on India Connect.
Thank you.